Hey folks, this is the one and only Warwolf, and yeah, it's been a while. It's been a hot minute. I apologize. It has been several weeks. Actually, I think it's been several months. I basically had to deal with a medical issue or two, and then while I was dealing with all of that, I've been following what's been going on with AEW, and holy crap, it's been a crazy couple of, months. So let's start off with a couple of big ones. First off, we have a heel Jungle Boy. I'm honest, if I'm completely blatantly honest with you here, I didn't see that coming. I don't think any of us really saw that coming anytime soon. I'm not entirely sure what the reasoning here is. Jack Perry, aka Jungle Boy, was arguably one of their better liked faces. I mean, the guy literally had a great match in that big Fatal 4-Way. It was MJF, Jack Perry, Sammy Guevara, Darby Allin. Holy crap, that was a great match, by the way. Then they started pairing him up with Hook. Now, Hook, of course, it was like third, maybe fourth guy, I think, in AEW to wield the FTW title. I think like the first one was Brian Cage, who is currently, I believe he's supposed to be 1/3 of the Ring of Honor World Six-Man Tag Champs. Then it ended up on Ricky Starks, and eventually it ended up with Hook, and then it ended up with Jack Perry. So they basically went, okay, we're going to have Jungle Boy, Jack Perry, we're going to have Hook, we're going to call them Jungle Hook, and it's like, okay, I mean, we literally just had this guy in the tag ranks with Luchasaurus, and I'm sorry, like, Jurassic Express, to me, was a much better tag team than Jungle Hook. I've got nothing against Jungle Hook. Let me make that absolutely clear here and now. But, like, if I had to choose, I would have very, very easily picked Jurassic Express, because with or without Marco Stunt, they are a great tag. I don't even know where Marco Stunt is, by the way. Honestly, if anybody knows where he is, by all means, please let me know in the comments. Because for the love of God, I have no idea what happened to him. I'm going to assume his contract with AEW, came up. That much I would at least expect. But I don't know where he went after that. I don't remember seeing him in the few times I've watched MLW. He could have gone to Impact, but again, I have no idea. So again, if you know where he is, by all means, please let me know. This then brings me probably to the biggest question of the whole thing. They turned Jungle Boy heel. And my first thought is, why? I mean, honestly, I think the question came down to which of them they thought they could more believably turn heel, which is kind of interesting because both Jungle Boy Jack Perry and Hook are pretty popular with AEW fans. Now, Hook, I'll be honest, like, he basically had a nearly perfect record. So, I guess that's probably part of it. I mean, you win that much, you're going to start getting fans. And the other part of it is, like, he kind of comes off as almost a more, I don't know, I'm not going to say angsty because it's not really angst. He just kind of comes off as almost a more sedate version of Goldberg in some regards. And I know that sounds incredibly stupid to say. And I mean incredibly stupid. But that's the best way I can think of to put it. It's just like, he would come down to the ring, the fans would cheer like mad for the guy, And then he would just kind of sit in the corner until the bell rang. And, like, I mean, tell me that doesn't just feel like a more chill version of Goldberg. Because both these guys come down to the ring, they have a match, they leave. I mean, the only difference is, well, one, Hook isn't bald, and two, Hook doesn't have nearly the same amount of mass as Goldberg, so his fighting style is more ground and pound and submission rather than basically smash mouth. I'm sorry, I don't have any other way to put it than that. So yeah, no, I'd been saying before that I did not want to see more of the feud between Christian Cage and Jungle Boy, and I mean, give credit to Tony Khan, he didn't give us that. But why turn him? I don't know, because again, the guy just came off a major match in the main event for, their previous pay-per-view. And then in the next pay-per-view, they have him turn on Hook, and the whole idea is, oh, well, Hook's the second-generation wrestler. He's had the proverbial silver spoon in his mouth or whatever, which is very bizarre because, remember, yes, Hook is second generation. His father is Taz. So, I mean, don't get me wrong on this. Every good parent should want to do right by their kids. In real life and in professional wrestling. But from a storyline perspective, you're going to tell me Taz, spoiled this kid? No. I'm sorry, just no. I mean, if anything, I'm pretty sure Taz was helping to train him in real life. I know that he was training with Dustin Rhodes at one point, part of the Nightmare Factory, and then eventually joined his father in Team Taz, sort of, and then kind of started doing his own thing when Team Taz more or less evaporated. So the idea that, this second generation star is mocking me, he was handed everything, I had to work for it, and blah, 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 blah. Like, I get it. He needs a justification for why he turned heel, but I don't know. I mean, considering who we're talking about, I don't know that really fits. But, okay, whatever. Credit where it's due, though. This is Jack Perry's first championship in the singles ranks in AEW. Now, of course, the FTW title is effectively a rogue championship in that, storyline-wise, it's not officially recognized by AEW. I'm actually kind of surprised they're even able to get away with using that belt. And I think part of it is because officially it was not created by ECW, which I think is half the issue as to why they were able to get away with using that belt, because apparently it really was Taz's actual creation, rather than something that he pitched to Paul Heyman and then they just, took it and ran with it. So that's kind of interesting. So yeah, he ends up winning the belt. Jerry Lynn pops up. Starts jaw-jacking with him for about a week. And then he brings in a ringer because he's so badly banged up he can't wrestle. There's somebody that he has a friendship with, rivalry, friendly rivalry, whatever, who was still able to, and it turned out to be none other than the whole effing show, Rob Van Dam. And first off, great props to them for bringing him in. I was not expecting that. I do admit, I actually, for some reason, I pinged on the idea that it was Van Dam when Lynn came out that time to basically say, like, hey, I can't wrestle you, but, like, I got somebody who can, somebody who's still wrestling. And, like, my first thought is, oh, my God, it's got to be Van Dam. And I don't know why, because I haven't seen the man wrestle in almost 10 years. And, again, major props to Van Dam. He looks great. he and Jungle Boy had a great match. And yes, I know I'm still calling him Jungle Boy rather than Jack Perry. I'm sorry. It's just like, every time I see that guy, I can't think of him as anything other than Jungle Boy because he made such a splash with that identity. On the subject, they finally stopped using Tarzan Boy by Baltimora, and I don't know what the song is. It's like, at first I thought it was Ride of the Valkyries because it does remind me of that, but I think it's Beethoven's Ninth. It may not be Beethoven's Ninth. It may be something else entirely. Like somebody out there, if somebody out there knows what his new song is, because I do believe it is some form of music from the classical period of like the Victorian era, even if it's not necessarily Victorian era, like England. I forget where Beethoven was from, but whatever the hell the case is, Beethoven, Mozart, whoever it was that composed the song, Solieri, whatever. But I'm sorry, it doesn't fit him. Because, like, you see Jungle Boy coming out with Tarzan Boy, it's fine. You know, it makes sense because, you know, he's been using that pretty much forever. But then they go to this, and it's just like, I'm sorry, it doesn't work. The ironic thing is, if they had done a dark reprise of Jungle Boy, literally done a cover of his old theme for Tarzan Boy, like a dark version of it, it could have worked. So, I mean, they could have kept him as Jungle Boy, or if they want to just go with him just being Jack Perry, or even, you know, change it to Jungle Jack, which for a while I was calling him in some of my earlier videos, and kept, like, Tarzan Boy, but with, like, a darker sound to it. Yeah, I think it would have worked. Now, how do I know this is the case? Because look at what they're doing with Maxwell Jacob Friedman, MJF. Now, I got to bring this up because it's beautiful storytelling, and I never expected them to really make this work. They have managed, in the weeks while I was absent, to get people legitimately behind MJF. Now, they've teased him acting like a face in the past, but they've never really seemed to commit to it. And right now, that's what they're doing. They've committed to this bit, even if it's only temporary. Now, you know going into this that one of these two men will turn on the other. Now, it is far, far too easy to simply have it be MJF. Because we're used to him playing games, we're used to him messing with people, and yes, narratively, it would fit. It would absolutely fit. This would be basically more of the same from MJF. But I kind of am hoping that they don't just turn him either here at All In coming up this Sunday or at All Out next Sunday. Yeah, you heard me right. They're doing back-to-back pay-per-views, which I'm very surprised at. But yeah, I really think if they wanted to, they could really run with MJF as a face. Because it would be a very unique way to play it off. Now, does that mean necessarily that they would have to turn Adam Cole? Theoretically, no. But if you saw this past week's Dynamite, it kind of feels like that is what they're aiming at. As they were showing some of the more, I guess, genre-savvy moments when this whole thing started out with the blind eliminator tag and how it then evolved into an apparent actual friendship. Like, this almost seems like it would be the perfect way to do it because you have, I believe it's the Kingdom. So we know that Roderick Strong is one of Adam Cole's friends, whether or not that's in real life or it's just, on screen. They've had a friendship, at least on screen, for years. And this almost feels like they could be setting Adam Cole up to betray MJF and potentially win the championship via interference from the Kingdom or Roddy Strong or something, and then set up for a rematch at All Out, and then have MJF chase Adam Cole as the champion for a while until we get to potentially November at Full Gear or in January for whatever the event they would do next is. There's so many options here that they could go with, and I'm very, very curious to see where it goes because I can't predict where this is going to go. This is one of the reasons why I love AEW, by the way. Every now and then I can pick out something they're going to do, but most of the time I can't. So, let's talk a little bit more about some of the other things that are going on. One, Luchasaurus finally has a championship in AEW as a singles competitor. It's the TNT Championship. I was very surprised that they basically kept him relegated to the new show Collision, which I still need to sit down and watch. I'll be honest, I've been kind of avoiding it because I don't really like CM Punk. Ever since he decided to interject his own personal politics into an episode of Dynamite, I've kind of wanted to stay away from that. Then there's him basically running his mouth at the press scrum a while back when basically he and the Elite kind of got into that altercation backstage after the press scrum that ended up with all four of them stripped of their belts. So I have admittedly been avoiding Collision, but I mean, considering right now they've basically got Luchasaurus over there, and I do like Luchasaurus. I'm waiting to see him break away from Christian Cage, who is, by the way, running around claiming he's the real TNT champion, even though it's Luchasaurus' title. So that's kind of amusing. Speaking of that, by the way, that reminds me of what's going on with CM Punk right now, where he's running around with another version of the AEW belt. Now remember, the version that he had, I don't think they took from him, storyline-wise, when they stripped him of the belt. They already had another championship belt in hand in case they needed to have an interim champion. Which, again, they did. That was the whole thing with Jon Moxley, and then you had Mox versus Punk and that whole thing. And then you get MJF with that Triple B. I forget what he calls that other belt, which is, I mean, whatever. I just don't know. Anyway, so Punk has this other belt, spray paints a giant X on it, and calls it the real World Championship. And my first thought was, are they basically echoing something that Ric Flair was doing in the WWF, as it was known at the time? And before anybody here gets confused about it, let me explain. When Ric Flair left the NWA/WCW in, I guess it would have been like mid-91? If I'm remembering the timeline, I think it's like late 90 to early 91, whatever the timeline is. Flair was still the NWA/WCW World Heavyweight Champion. And there was a very specific way that they handled the championship. Now, I don't know if any other company does this, but NWA, WCW did this, at least while they were still part of the same group, which, of course, the NWA was the superseding group, and then eventually WCW kind of split off. But long story short, if you were the world champion, you were required to put down a deposit of $250,000 just in case anything happened to the belt or whatever. And then when you were no longer the champion, you would not only get back that money for the deposit, you would also get a certain amount of, I forget what the exact percentage was, but you were supposed to get a certain amount of interest back as well. Jim Herd, who had been running WCW at the time, kept butting heads with Ric Flair because he really didn't understand Flair's character or the significance of Flair to the WCW fans. And eventually he just kind of said, you know what, get the hell out of my face, go away, whatever. And so Flair's contract came up. He was sent feelers by the WWF. He joined, but because he'd never gotten his money back, he basically was of the belief that meant he physically owned that version of the belt. Particularly because Herd had some other belt just kind of like slapped together, and then eventually they had the WCW 1990s world title, which isn't a bad belt, by the way, created and given to Lex Luger after he was established as the new world champion in WCW. So Flair basically had the WWF in that situation where they've got his belt, they've got Hogan's belt, and they go, you know what, let's use this as a way to hype up Flair's appearance in WWF. So they start basically doing broadcasts on USA Network with the belt. Flair eventually shows up, proclaims himself the real world's champion, and basically was kind of just egging Hogan on for a match. And it just kind of feels like, in some regard, that they're somewhat imitating or shadowing that with CM Punk, which is okay, whatever. I mean, I can think of worse things to do with the guy. And I'm pretty sure at this point that's considered a rogue title as well. So, I mean, I don't know that's really officiated under any actual rules, because again, it's not the official title at this point. So, whatever. And he's currently feuding with Samoa Joe over the thing. So apparently that is going to be a match we're getting it All Out, and hopefully we'll see Joe take that title, and we'll see what he does with it. Maybe he'll rename it or something, because remember, as far as I know, Samoa Joe is still the reigning Ring of Honor World Television Champion. Because I keep seeing him on the various graphics for these events. Like, he's still got the Ring of Honor TV belt on his shoulders, so I'm assuming he's still got the title. It's very hard to keep track of that because, like, unless you're part of, like, Honor Club, it's very hard to keep track of what's going on with Ring of Honor if they're not doing matches specifically on AEW TV. So there's that. Let me think. We know that the TBS title is still a thing. Chris Statlander potentially facing a threat from Ruby Soho of the Outcasts. I think she might have a match soon with that. The women's world title in AEW is on the line. Hikaru Shida is defending against, Britt Baker, Toni Storm, and it's either Velvet Sky or Sky Blue, and I forget which. Just because I haven't really been following the women's division that heavily. I usually only give a damn when Hikaru Shida is actually, involved, because most of the time, like, the women's division for the longest time was kind of revolving around Jade Cargill, and I was not a big fan of her with the TBS title because she just, I have the same problem with her as I have with Bianca Belair. They just do not have, the charisma to draw me in and make me care about their character. Maybe it's just the booking, I don't know. But, yeah, so I mean, I really kind of tuned out for the women's division when, TBS title was on Jade Cargill. I was kind of hoping to see Taya Valkyrie pick it up, but hey, I'll take Chris Statlander. At this point, I'm expecting Jade Cargill to return at some point and take the belt back. I know Willow Nightingale has been in and out of AEW. She's right now, the NJPW Strong Women's Champion. There's like, I don't even know how that whole thing works. So that's a thing. The AEW World Tag Team titles are on the line. The Young Bucks will be taking on FTR this Sunday. That's going to be interesting in and of itself. Now, FTR, they are a great, great tag team. They are among the few tag teams that have held the world titles for the tag division more than once. At one point, in fact, I think one point last year, they were holding 3 different tag titles simultaneously: AEW, Ring of Honor, and AAA. If memory serves, I believe it was the AAA tag straps. So they still have the AEW World Tag Team titles. They have mentioned that sometime, I think they've said in the next few years, they're looking to finally hang it up, which is, again, kind of amazing because I'm pretty sure these guys are still very much, able to wrestle for another good couple of years. I want to say they're in their 30s, maybe early 40s at most. I mean, that's fine. We know that Dax absolutely dotes on his daughter. He brings her up more than once in his various promos. Maybe he's at the point where he feels like he's saved up enough money that he can hang it up and spend time with his daughter, which is perfectly fine if that's ultimately what he's going to decide to do. I don't know what's going to happen with Cash Wheeler. Obviously, if FTR hang it up, that doesn't necessarily mean they're both retiring. It could mean that Dax is retiring. It could mean that they're both retiring. It could mean that Cash Wheeler is potentially going to have to go and find the new tag partner, or maybe he'll go into singles. I don't know. But they're taking on the Young Bucks, and for both of these teams, it really is kind of a matter of their in-ring legacy. I mean, let's not forget, the Bucks have a tag team legacy as well, with championships all over the world. FTR, same deal. Hell, FTR is one of the few teams out there that I know of that can boast having held championships pretty much in most of the major promotions of the day. They are former tag team champions on Monday Night Raw. I believe it's either Monday Night Raw or SmackDown, I forget which, when they were the Revival. I believe they are 2 or 3 times co-holders of the Ring of Honor World Tag Team titles. I know it's at least twice. But I could be misremembering if they have a third belt in that collection to their name. I don't really remember. I don't know if they've held the titles in Impact, but I think they might have. I believe they've held championships in Japan. I'm not sure if that's All Japan or New Japan where they've held championships. It could be either one. Could be both. I'd really have to go back and double check. But, yeah, I mean, FTR has held a lot of championships, and so have the Bucks. The Bucks, obviously, former Ring of Honor World Tag Team Champions, former AEW World Tag Team Champions. I think they've held championships in Impact, but again, I'm not sure, so don't hold me to that one. They may have held titles in Japan, same deal. There is ultimately just so much we don't know about how these two would really view their own legacies going into this match, other than both teams feel like they need the win, and both teams probably do really need the win, not just to cement a legacy, but to continue the advancement of their own careers as it currently stands. Never mind the legacy they leave behind. These guys, they haven't retired yet, FTR. And I don't think the Young Bucks are retiring anytime soon. Now, what a lot of people don't know, and Jim Cornette has mentioned this in a couple of videos he's done, the Young Bucks are executive vice presidents in AEW, so they do have some amount of control over the booking. But I do believe that either way, this is going to be a great match. I know Cornette is saying that he doesn't think that the Bucks are walking out as the losers on this simply because, they don't want to lose at such a big show. It's 100 years of TNT, or rather, of Warner Brothers. I believe Wembley Stadium is also celebrating its 100th. So, yeah, it's a big thing either way. So there's that. And this is also, I think, the biggest crowd that AEW has managed to yet garner. I mean, if they've really gotten, a sellout crowd for Wembley Stadium, if they've managed that, that is a massive feather in their cap, because I mean, most of the shows that they handle, I mean, sure, they draw a good, 20, 30, maybe even upwards of like 40 to 50,000. But they have not necessarily pulled the same numbers for crowds that WWE has, despite, in my opinion, the currently inferior product. WWE is a name brand, and people will go see it anyway. Whether or not they necessarily like the product, it's still wrestling, and a lot of people don't really know that, there's necessarily something better out there. Now, I know a lot of you are going to say, this or that about AEW's product. I know Jim Cornette absolutely will, because, I mean, he's got his own issues with the product for whatever reason. That's him, and that's, that's his opinion. More than entitled to it. I mean, the man's been involved in the business for 40, 50 years, whatever the hell it is. So he does have his own take on the business. I personally like AEW, but I don't know how many people are aware that there are other options, because Impact, for the longest time, was the alternative. And I don't think they still have a TV deal on any major American stations. They do have a channel on Twitch, and they do have some stuff on YouTube, but, I mean, that's not quite the same as having the national deal they once did. So then you have, AEW, which, again, I personally like. I think it's a good alternative to WWE. I can't really predict it most of the times, and they are not afraid to just go headlong into the storyline and go crazy. Like, we literally saw a War Games match. I mean, they call it Blood and Guts, but let's call it what it is. It's War Games. It's War Games and everything but literally just the name. So they're willing to show blood. They are willing to show injuries. They are willing to do stuff that WWE hasn't done since the end of the Attitude Era. I mean, WWE thinks, if somebody bleeds, we have to, render like images in black and white during recap. It's like, dude, people know what blood is. It's like they see so much worse most of the time in like any action movie or war movie or horror movie, and you think a little blood is going to be a problem? Like, to anybody who knows professional wrestling and remembers the old days, I mean, for God's sakes, Hulk Hogan, during like the golden age of wrestling, Hulk Hogan, Randy Savage, you name it, they were willing to bleed during these matches, and nobody clutched their pearls about it. I mean, for God's sakes, look at the NWA. There was a time when the Road Warriors drove a spike into Dusty Rhodes' eye. God rest all their souls at this point. They're all dead, I think. Actually, somebody double check for me. I think Animal is dead, but, I mean, he could be alive. I know Hawk is definitely passed. So, I mean, that's a whole thing. But, yeah, that's a crazy thing in and of itself. To think that people would look at, oh, there's blood on WWTV, clutch pearl, give me a break. AEW doesn't do that. They know that you guys are capable of just enjoying the show and not worrying about, oh, somebody got a little bloody. In fact, they kind of lean into it. Jon Moxley has some of the best matches I've seen, and he often bleeds so often it's not even funny. I'm surprised the man has any blood left in his body. But, yeah, I mean, either way. So, again, folks, this was kind of a rambly video, I know, but this is because I am just coming back after a hiatus, and, I just wanted to cover a couple of quick things for professional wrestling, and this is just, my return. This is the return of wrestling, anime, whatever, or wow, whatever. Oh, boy. So, yeah, I am still doing videos. For anybody who has followed me over on Shadow and Friends Gaming and knows that I play Sonic the Hedgehog, Mario, Jumpman Mario, and Eggman Nega over there for the spoof characters. Yeah, that's a whole thing. So yeah, either way. But again, folks, if you like this video, please hit that thumbs up button, hit subscribe, ring that notification bell to be notified of when new videos go up. Because honestly, the only thing worse than bad booking is the YouTube algorithm. And it will fuck you over 8 ways from Sunday. I'd also love to get to the point where I could finally turn this into like a job, where I could actually start making money off of this. So I need to definitely get to the point where I can get monetized, but we'll have to wait and see what happens there. But anyway, folks, I'm going to try to start doing a little bit more frequent videos. I'm not really going to do the screen caps as often as I used to, just because it's very difficult to really just basically take screen caps, write the scripts, and then keep an eye on the show at the same time while I'm doing Dynamite or, Rampage, or at some point when I start doing it, Collision or whatever else. It's very hard to do. Unlike, for example, if I was to do like an anime review, which I am going to do again at some point, because I've already done one for Tiger Mask Double. I'm going to do something for another anime review sometime in the near future. With that, it's easier because you can just pause it. You don't have to worry about going back and doing an on-demand thing. And, you can just do it as you need. You can't really do that during a live broadcast, and it's kind of a pain in the ass. So, I'm still going to do as much as I can of a recap, but I don't necessarily need to have the screenshots. If I find 1 or 2 good screenshots, every now and then I'll grab them and I'll put them up for the show. But we will, of course, be continuing to do videos. I'm going to continue doing anime reviews at some point, doing more of those. I'm going to continue doing wrestling reviews, primarily AEW at this point, because can't stand WWE right now. I've been debating whether or not to do MLW. You guys let me know. I personally don't really think I'm going to do those, just because I'm not the biggest fan. The pay-per-views, I'll definitely try to, at the very least, get a little bit of reviews in every now and then. I'll definitely try to do one for All Out for this Sunday, and for All In for this Sunday. All Out is next Sunday. That's my bad. But yeah, I do hope you enjoyed this video. And again, if you did, please hit like, hit subscribe, ring the notification bell. Leave me a comment or two. I mean, did you miss me? Do you hate the fact that I'm back? Do you secretly want my head on a platter? I mean, if you do, I can always have it duplicated in, like, mashed potatoes and sent to you. That's a little bit of a reference to an old episode of Alf. Sue me. Anyway, folks, thank you again for tuning into this video. I hope you'll stick with me now that I'm back. Maybe not full-time, but definitely doing more than I used to be doing, simply because, I have recovered. For those of you who are wondering, no, I am not worried about anything regarding the writer's strike, because nothing I'm doing, I think, has anything to do with the writing strike going on. I have basically been looking at that situation, by the way, and I'm not really sure what my personal feelings are on it one way or the other. On some things, I understand what they want. On others, I'm not necessarily so sure. But yeah, no, these videos have nothing to do with, writing for movies or TV or anything. This is, mostly just doing reviews of wrestling, anime, stuff that has nothing to do with these guys. I personally have no skin in that fight anyway. So there's that. So if anybody's going, oh, you're scabbing because you're putting out videos, it's like, yeah, no, I'm not, because I'm literally putting out videos based on stuff that these guys just don't have anything to do with. So anyway, folks, this is the Warwolf howling out at you. I'm back, folks, and I will be back next time I have something to say, and I hope you'll be there to enjoy what I have to say. Peace!